as it is very impossible to discuss the entire CMTA in just an hour or in 2 hours setting, we will focus on certain provisions and concepts that, based on my experience as well as from the feedback of our examinees, were frequently asked in the licensure examination. And these are the following topics. Earlier, Kent mentioned about the 4 subjects in the licensure examination. And according to him, ang rank number 1 niya is computation. Okay? And I hope, Kent, that after this webinar, your number 1 subject would now be customs laws. Okay? So yung pangalang Kent ay marami din akong mga estudyanteng mga pangalan ang Kent. In fact, one of my students before, one of my best students, ang pangalan niya Kent. And he performed well in the board examination. So wala akong duda, kagaya mo Kent, kagaya niyo Roslyn, at lahat ng ating mga students na nag-attend today in today's webinar, I'm pretty sure you will definitely get high grades. The fact that you spend or that you chose to spend your morning with us today is a testament to your desire to do well in your studies. And hopefully, I can give justice to that desire of yours. And through this webinar, we may be able to develop the knowledge of the essential concepts in customs laws. So yung subject na customs laws, based on the latest table of specifications released by the Professional Regulatory Board for Customs Brokers, I divided into 3 major subtopics. So yung una would be the Customs Administration Essentials, and these are the subtopics. We will discuss about the CMTA basics. Ano ba yung CMTA? When was it passed? When did it take effect? The definition of smuggling, what is outright and what is technical smuggling, when importation begins and when it is deemed terminated, the concept on the general rule on the taxation of imports, when are imports subject to tax and when are they exempted from taxation, the types of goods, relief consignment versus donated goods, the Bureau of Customs, in particular the organization, and then to a certain extent, the topic on police authority, which includes the power to effect search, seizure, and arrest, as well as the visitorial power of the Bureau of Customs. And then on administrative and judicial proceedings, we will discuss about jurisdiction, administrative action and judicial action, advance ruling, dispute settlement and protest, seizure and forfeiture proceedings, alert order and pre-lodgement control order, abandonment. Siguro naisip nyo, ang haba naman ng topic. Mahaba lang yung topic, pero yung discussion natin, iiklian. Why? Because I want to give more time for you to ask questions. And then the scope, the third subtopic on ethics and practices, that would be the scope of the practice of the profession, and the threefold liabilities of the customs broker. So let's start. Let's have the evolution of customs laws in the Philippines. As far as our customs laws are concerned, everything started during the time. The law was formalized during the Spanish occupation. Although there are theories that say customs laws have emerged even before the coming of the Spaniards, based on legal history, the customs laws in the Philippines were passed during the Spanish regime. So we have the first law, which is the Spanish customs law. And our customs laws during that time were patterned after the laws promulgated in Spain. And then after 333 years of Spanish regime, we were under the United States. And under the United States, the law prevailing then was the Philippine Tariff Act of 1909. And then after gaining independence, we have our Philippine Congress, and this is considered to be the first law passed by a Filipino Congress, and that is Republic Act number 1937, or the Tariff and Customs Code of the Philippines of 1957. And since then, various laws have been passed by our Philippine Congress related to customs administration. Pero sa dami nila, kalat-kalat yung mga batas. That's why during the time of the late President Marcos, the father of our current president, during the time of President Marcos Sr., he codified all the laws relating to customs and tariff administration into Presidential Decree number 34, or the Tariff and Customs Code of the Philippines in 1972, which was further codified into the TCCP of 1978. So nung nag-aaral pa ako, nung nag-aral ako sa college, the law that we were studying then was the provision of Presidential Decree number 1464, or the Tariff and Customs Code of the Philippines of 1978. And then after 28 years of having that law, or not 28, 48, 38 years of having that law, in 2016, in view of our commitment to the revised Kyoto Convention and various agreements with other states, the Philippines enacted the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act of 2016, or the Bible that we are studying, Republic Act number 10863. But how did the CMTA start? The CMTA started because of our commitment to the revised Kyoto Convention based on 2007. So in 2007, the Bureau of Customs led the adoption of the revised Kyoto Convention. And because some of our laws prevailing at that time were not relevant, or shall we say were not congruent with the provisions of the revised Kyoto Convention, dapat baguhin natin yung ating mga batas. And that is why the Bureau of Customs created the management team that drafted the first version of the law. In fact, in 2009, ang title ng batas ay hindi pa CMTA. It was CTMA, Customs and Tariff Modernization Act. But in 2015, after 6 years of deliberation in Congress and lobbying by various sectors, we consolidated that version into the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act. And the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act, huwag kayong maguluhan doon sa title. Be sure that you know the title, kasi ang iba akala nila Customs and Modernization Tariff Act. No, it should be Customs Modernization and Tariff Act. So that's RA 10863. In its original text, the law is written in 166 pages. Yung original text ng batas. In 315 sections, 18 titles, and 43 chapters. So what are the significant dates that you have to take note when it comes to the CMTA? The first date is when it was passed. And when was the CMTA passed? It was passed on May 30, 2016. How do we know that that is the date of its passage? That's the date when the late President Benigno S. Aquino III signed the CMTA. And the CMTA as a law, sabi kasi ng batas natin sa Civil Code of the Philippines as amended by the Administrative Code of the Philippines, laws shall take effect after its publication. So dapat ma-publish ang batas. And because of that, the CMTA was published on June 1, 2016. And why is the date of publication so important? Okay, it was published in Manila Bulletin on June 1, 2016. May nagtanong sa akin, Sir, Bakit ba kailangan nating malaman yung date of publication? It is because according to the effectivity clause, yung last section ng CMTA, section 1805, ang sabi doon, the CMTA will take effect after 15 days from its publication. So from the date of publication, you count 15 days, you just add 15 sa June 1, that would be June 16. And on June 16, the law took effect. Okay. So, smuggling. Ano ba yung smuggling? Siguro bago nyo nalaman ano yung trabaho ng broker, ang una nyong nalaman ano yung smuggling. Because people thought that a customs broker is a smuggler. No, that's not correct. That's the wrong notion. That's that's the sadly that's the wrong notion of people na kapag customs broker, smuggler. No, hindi ho yan totoo. Customs brokers are professionals. Customs brokers are considered to be quasi customs officers. Why? Because based on our mandate, our primary role is to ensure the payment of lawful duties and taxes to the government. So, erase na sa atin ang concept na kapag customs broker, smuggler. Okay? So, what is smuggling? Smuggling is defined under the CMTA, under Section 102, letter NN. And it refers to the fraudulent act of importing any goods into the Philippines. So yung first act, yan yung mismong pagdala papuntang Pilipinas ng mga goods fraudulently. May fraud. May there is deceit. Okay, there is the intention to commit deceit or fraud. May pagsisinungaling. Or kung hindi man ikaw ang nagdala, you assist in the concealment, in buying, in selling, in disposing or transporting the goods. But the element of assist must also be coupled with the element of full knowledge. Kaya nga ang customs broker, hindi lang enough na yung customs broker ay nag-process sa shipment, hindi lang enough na yung customs broker ang pumirma ng entry. According to the law, the customs broker, in order to be liable for smuggling, must also have the element of full knowledge that the shipment being processed, that the shipment being facilitated from the release at the Bureau of Customs have been fraudulently imported. And lastly, the fraudulent exportation of goods. Now, relief consignment. Ito yung bagong concept na na-introduce ng CMTA. Prior to the CMTA, we don't have the relief consignment provision, yung nakasaad sa section 120 to 121 of the CMTA. During the time of Yolanda, how young were you? I think that was in 2014 or 2013. Okay. So, that was 13 years ago. So 13 years ago, during the typhoon, when Typhoon Yolanda hit the country badly, so badly, people from all over the world donated various items to the Philippines. Maraming nagbigay papunta sa Pilipinas. But they thought na, for example, yung kahit mga individuals, galing from, let us say for example, from the US, they gathered all their things from the US tapos pinadala sa Pilipinas. Akala nila, ganun lang, tapos na. Padala na lang sila Pilipinas, pagdating sa Pilipinas, bahala na. They thought, that's it. But, customs laws then required that even donated goods have to be processed at the Bureau of Customs. So, ang iba, ang mga shipments na containerized shipments were not processed. Kasi nga, ang akala ng tao, enough na ipadala sa Pilipinas. Hindi nila alam na pagdating sa Pilipinas, kailangan pa nilang i-process. Kailangan pa silang kumuha ng tax exemption endorsement para walang babayarang duties and taxes. So because of that, hindi nila alam, lack of awareness on the part of the people who were bringing goods into the country, maraming shipments ang na-abandon at the port. And the Bureau of Customs then was scrutinized. Lahat na lang ng hindi magandang salita ay isinabi sa Bureau of Customs. People thought that the Bureau of Customs was not sensitive to the plight of the community. The Bureau of Customs was not sensitive to the needs of the community kasi pinabayaan daw na mabulok, pinabayaan na ma-abandon yung shipment sa port. Unfortunately, Customs has to implement the law. And the law then requires that even donated goods, even relief goods have to be processed accordingly. Have to be processed in the normal procedures at the Bureau of Customs. But under the CMTA, nagbago na because we already have the process of relief consignment. And according to Section 120, ano ba yung relief consignment? These are goods which consist of food, pagkain, medicine, equipment, materials for shelter, either donated or leased to government institutions or accredited private entities. For which purpose? For free distribution to or use of victims of calamities. Ibig sabihin, hindi ito ibebenta, kundi ibibigay para sa libreng paggamit ng mga biktima ng kalamidad. And these goods have to be imported during a state of calamity. And if you read Section 121 of the CMTA, ang sabi ng Section 121 ng CMTA, these goods have to be processed in simplified manner. And they can even be released even outside of customs office hours. So kahit hindi na oras ng pagtrabaho ng customs, basta't may relief consignment, kailangan mai-release agad ng Bureau of Customs. And these have to be processed in simpler means. Hindi na yung katulad ng ordinary shipment. So yung pag-process ng relief consignment would be in expeditious and simplified customs procedure. Kaya ngayon, mas madali nang mai-release sa Bureau of Customs yung ating mga relief goods. And in fact, in the same section 121, ang sabi dyan, they are exempted from the payment of duties and taxes. So, may nagtanong din sa akin, ano ba yung kaibahan ng donated goods under section 800 ng CMTA tsaka yung relief consignment? So, in short, ito yung kaibahan niya. This is how these two differ from each other. Yung donated goods, ang basis niya, section 800 letter M, as implemented by Customs Administrative Order number 6-2020. While yung relief consignment, section 120 to 121 ng CMTA as implemented by JAO number 1-2020. Yung tax treatment niya, ang donated goods, duty exempt lang. Ang relief consignment, both duty and tax. Walang limit, ang type of goods sa donated goods, kahit ano, kahit cellphone, pwede. Pero sa relief consignment, limited to these types of goods. And then, kung sino yung mag-i-import, kahit sino, gobyerno, ahensya ng gobyerno o private relief organization, at tapos sa relief consignment, government agencies, private entities, pero dapat accredited by DSWD, DFA, DOH, and OCD for relief consignment purposes. Ang donated goods, kahit anong oras, kahit kailan, pwede. Pero yung relief consignment, dapat merong state of national or local calamity. Ang beneficiary, kahit sino, pwedeng tumanggap sa donated goods, but for relief consignment, they have to be victims of calamity. Ang nag-a-approve for donated goods, Department of Finance. Ang nag-a-approve for relief consignment, the Philippine International Humanitarian Assistance Reception Center One-Stop Shop. And this is under the NDRRMC. Ang exemption requirement for donated goods, dapat merong tax exemption endorsement while for relief consignment, ang kailangan is relief consignment supplemental form. Ang procedure for donated goods, normal and ordinary procedure, while for relief consignment, simplified cargo clearance procedure. Okay, what else? Types of smuggling, outright smuggling, yung hindi dumaan sa customs. Tapos yung technical smuggling, yan yung dumaan sa customs through various schemes. So, outright smuggling without complete documents, without being cleared by the Bureau of Customs or by the regulatory agency, while technical smuggling is undervaluation, misclassification, and misdeclaration. You miss you. Okay, what is importation? So, importation refers to the act of bringing in of goods from a foreign country into the Philippines. Then, when does importation begin? So, take note to, nasa section 103. Importation begins when these two elements are present. The element of entrance, ibig sabihin dapat pumasok sa teritoryo ng Pilipinas. At pangalawa, merong intention to unload the goods in the Philippines. So let's have this as an example. MT Eluhay, a Greek registered vessel, anchored near Boracay Island from Singapore, carrying 10,000 liters of diesel fuel bound for Phil Unity Oil Company located in Zamboanga. Question, is there importation of diesel fuel? Meron bang importation sa problem na to? Anyone can answer. Kung gusto nyo sa chat box, all the more, you're welcome. Sige, do you think there is importation in this situation? What do you think? Meron bang importation? May nagsabing wala, merong nagsabing oo. Okay? Marami yung yes. Okay. So the answer in this problem is yes, there is importation. Why? Number one, meron bang element of entrance? Ang una niyong tatanungin, pumasok ba yung barko sa Pilipinas? Yes. Bakit? Nasa Boracay daw sila eh. O di ba? Mabuti pa yung barko, nasa Boracay, tayo, wala. So nasa Boracay, nasa teritoryo ng Pilipinas. Pangalawa, meron bang intention na yung shipment niya ay idiskarga o iparating sa Pilipinas? Yes. Why? Because the diesel fuel is bound to Zamboanga. So nasa Zamboanga yung kanyang consignee. So there is the intention to unload the shipment. In fact, this problem is taken from an actual case. And this is the case of Feeder International Line versus Court of Appeals. So if you have my book, I discuss that case in my book. Ang nangyari sa kasong yan, yung barko galing Singapore. Tapos, accordingly, sabi nila, nag-angkorahe sila sa may Iloilo. Kasi daw, nasiraan sila. So, nasiraan daw sila sa Iloilo. Without the knowledge, without reporting the incident to the Bureau of Customs, di ba? Ayon sa CMTA, kapag merong distress of weather, kapag merong problem na na-encounter yung barko, you have to notify, you have to file a marine protest before the nearest customs office. Ang barko, hindi nila yan ginawa. In fact, nalaman lang ng customs kasi merong nagmarites. Uy, customs, merong barko doon na nandun sa laot. Alam nyo ba? So wala. Dahil sa marites, nalaman ng customs. Kaya minsan, yung mga marites, may silbi din sa ating bansa. So, nagmarites, nagpunta yung customs. Pagpunta ng customs, hinanapan ng papeles, walang may pakitang papeles. In fact, according to the operatives, according to the customs officers that boarded the vessel, pagdating daw nila doon sa barko, merong daw dalawang barko na nasa side, on the left side and on the right side of the vessel. So the theory of the customs officers was that the vessel is engaging in ship-side discharge. Ibig sabihin, nagdidiskarga siya. Kasi bakit naman may dalawang barko sa gilid ng isang barko? Okay, what's the intention? Of course, the intention is baka magdiskarga. So, because of that, the Bureau of Customs issued a warrant of seizure and detention against the vessel and the goods. Pero yung may-ari ng barko tsaka yung crew ng barko, yung captain ng barko, sabi nila, it is wrong for the Bureau of Customs to issue a warrant of seizure and detention. Wala daw legal basis na i-seize yung shipment. Bakit? Anong reason nila? Kasi daw walang importation. Bakit walang importation? Wala naman daw silang intention na i-diskarga yung shipment. Kasi ang purpose daw nila na nasa Iloilo sila ay dahil nagpapa-repair ng barko. That's the reason. They are doing emergency repairs at that area. So, ang sabi ng Supreme Court, nung umabot yung kaso sa Supreme Court, parang napaisip yung Supreme Court. If yung barko mo para sa Zamboanga, bakit ka aabot sa Iloilo? Napakalayo ng Iloilo sa Zamboanga. Bakit dun ka sa Iloilo nagpa-repair? Dumaan ka na ng Zamboanga. Ba't ka pa dumiretso ng Iloilo para magpa-repair? Diba? So the intention there is that meron talagang ill motive yung barko na magdiskarga without the knowledge of the customs authorities. And the Supreme Court held that the two elements are present because the fact that the shipment is consigned to a person in Zamboanga establishes the element of intention to unload in the Philippines. So there is importation. So kung merong pagsisimula ng importation, meron ding katapusan ang pagtatapos ng importation. So when does importation terminate? If the goods are taxable when the payment is made or when there is a security and the legal permit for the withdrawal is granted, or if they are tax-free when they legally left the jurisdiction of customs. Let's have another question. A 40-footer container van left Cebu International Port after the importer paid 500,000 in duties and taxes. However, upon re-examination, the Bureau of Customs found that the importer should have paid 600,000. Question, is importation terminated? Which does not give the Bureau of Customs any other authority over the goods. So the answer is no. Importation is not terminated because although there was payment, that payment was not complete because the payment does not reflect the correct amount of duties and taxes. Okay, let's go to taxation of imports. What is the general rule? The general rule is that one found in Section 104 of the CMTA. At sabi ng Section 104, lahat ng goods, all. Okay, hindi naman sinabi ng batas specific. Ang sabi niya lahat, all, when imported into the Philippines, shall be subject to duty upon importation. So lahat ng papasok sa Pilipinas na galing abroad, dapat magbayad ng customs duty, including goods previously exported from the Philippines. So, for example, yung dried mangoes na galing Cebu, example, ginawa sa Cebu, in-export papuntang, let us say, papuntang Taiwan. Pagdating sa Taiwan, let us say, binili at ibinalik sa Pilipinas. Do you think yung dried mangoes na yon subject to duty? Yes, because the law says all, lahat, basta galing abroad, kahit nga yung galing mismo sa Pilipinas, are subject to customs duties. That's the general rule. But in every rule, there is an exception. And these are the exceptions. Number one, except as otherwise provided in the CMTA. Unless merong batas na merong provision sa CMTA na nag-e-exempt siya from payment of customs duty, or when there is a law saying otherwise. Kung merong ibang batas na nag-e-exempt from the payment of duties and taxes, then exempted. Okay, ano examples? De minimis imports under Section 423 of the CMTA. Relief consignments, conditionally tax or duty exempt imports under Section 800. Customs bonded warehousing, goods intended for customs bonded warehousing, goods intended for PEZA and Freeport zones, stores, and then special laws such as yung during the pandemic, we have the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act or the Bayanihan to Recover as One Act. So yung mga face masks, yung mga medicines, yung mga vaccines were imported free of duties and taxes because there's a special law. And when it is our commitment under international agreements. What are the types of goods? Freely importable or exportable goods. When you say freely importable or exportable goods, ito yung nasa section 116. But these goods do not refer to free importation. Hindi sa ibig sabihin freely importable ay walang babayarang duties. Ang ibig sabihin lang dito sa free ay hindi siya required na permit, hindi required na merong clearance, hindi required na merong authority. Ano ba yung goods nga required yung permit? Okay, regulated goods. Required niya ng permits. And then we have the restricted goods. And then not allowed, generally not allowed except under section 119 of the CMTA. And then prohibited goods under section 118. Punta na tayo sa Bureau of Customs. So the Bureau of Customs is under the Department of Finance. Ang kapatid niya, Bureau of Internal Revenue. Ang commissioner ng Bureau of Internal Revenue ngayon ay dating District Collector ng Port of Cebu, si Commissioner Charlito Mendoza. And then we have the Bureau of the Treasury and then the Bureau of Local Government Finance. So ang Bureau of Customs ay isang revenue generating agency. Ibig sabihin, nangongolekta ng buwis. Kaya nga, yung measurement ng Bureau of Customs ay laging collection performance. So according to the latest data from the Bureau of Customs, the Bureau was able to collect 934.4 billion pesos in last year from January to December 2025. And that is an increase from the collection that it made in 2024. And then when it comes to border protection, so, di ba, ang mandate ng Bureau of Customs, revenue collection, border protection. So, when it comes to border protection, yan yung mga seizures ng Bureau of Customs. And then trade facilitation. And then, ang pinaka recent na issue ng Bureau of Customs ay yung balikbayan box. But we will discuss that later on. So when it comes to the Bureau of Customs, you should know the officers of the Bureau of Customs. So we have the Commissioner of Customs being the head, and he's assisted by 4 but not more than 6 deputy commissioners. And these are all appointed by the President of the Philippines. Take note, ang sabi ng Section 200, at least majority of the deputy commissioners shall come from the ranks of the Bureau. Anong ibig sabihin ng at least majority? Di ba ang DepCom 6? So dapat ang 4 sa 6 na DepCom should come from the ranks of the Bureau. Ano yung ibig sabihin ng from the ranks of the Bureau? Ibig sabihin, galing mismo sa Bureau of Customs, insiders mismo sa Bureau of Customs. And why does the law provide for that requirement? Kasi kung yung taong i-appoint mo nasa loob na ng customs, alam na yung trabaho, hindi na mahirapan, hindi na gagapang sa trabaho niya. Kasi alam na niya ano yung dapat niyang gawin kasi nga, nandyan na siya sa Bureau of Customs. So, the present Commissioner, Ariel Nepomuceno, was a former Deputy Commissioner of the Bureau of Customs. So, he was appointed as Commissioner of the Bureau of Customs. And then we have the Deputy Commissioners. So, Deputy Commissioner for Internal Administration Group, DepCom Michael Fermin. So simulan natin ng pag-count doon sa requirement na majority should come from the ranks of the Bureau. DepCom Fermin was previously a DepCom of the Bureau of Customs, a director of the administration office. So ibig sabihin insider siya. Next, Deputy Commissioner for AOCG, Attorney Agaton Overo, who's also a customs broker. Dati na rin siyang Deputy Commissioner before the time of President Aquino. President Noynoy Aquino. Dati na siyang DepCom. And then for Revenue Collection Monitoring Group, ito si Attorney Arnel Alhambra, hindi siya dating taga-bureau. So, dalawa na yung dating taga-bureau. And then for Intelligence Group, Deputy Commissioner Romeo Alan Rosales, dati na siyang taga-Bureau of Customs. In fact, naging district collector siya ng maraming ports, including the Port of Cebu. When I left the Bureau of Customs at the Port of Cebu, he was my boss. Okay. And then for Enforcement Group, Police General Nolasco Bathan, Deputy Commissioner, hindi siya galing sa Bureau of Customs. And then for Management Information System and Technology Group, Deputy Commissioner Escobedo, hindi rin siya galing sa Bureau of Customs. So as far as the 6 Deputy Commissioners are concerned, ilan ba yung dati ng taga-bureau? 3, di ba? 3 na yung dating taga-bureau. Okay. Now, there is another official in the Bureau of Customs who assists the commissioner but is not mentioned in Section 200 of the CMTA. In fact, this position is mentioned in another, hindi naman siya law, in an executive order. And this is Executive Order number 46, series of 2017. Do you know what position is this? Does anyone know? Okay. Okay, it's the it is the Post Clearance Audit Group. Okay, that's the group, but the position is Assistant Commissioner. So Assistant Commissioner Vincent Philip Maronilla, dati na siyang taga Bureau of Customs. He was a district collector in POM, MICP, I think, POM or MICP. Dati siyang district collector, I mean. So, I would advise you to be familiar with the structure of the Bureau of Customs kasi itatanong yan, may tanong yan sa board examination. And then, if you're familiar with how government works, sa gobyerno kasi, ang sahod ng mga empleyado ng gobyerno na meron niyang salary standardization law. So, ibig sabihin, lahat ng posisyon sa gobyerno merong grading schedule. So, the highest salary grade is that of the President. That is salary grade 33. At ang sahod ng Pangulo ng Pilipinas, that's monthly ha, monthly salary ng Pangulo ng Pilipinas ay 428,994 pesos. Okay? And then salary grade 32, yan yung Vice President, Senate President, Speaker of the House, Chief Justice. And then salary grade 31, yung senador ninyo. Oh, yan yung sahod ng inyong mga senador, ng inyong mga congressmen. So salary grade 31, and then you have the governors, the mayors, the vice governor, the city vice mayor. So lahat yan merong salary structure. Yung chairman ng inyong barangay, salary grade 14 yan. Ang sahod, yan. And then yung kagawad ng inyong barangay, salary grade 10, yan yung sahod. So, why am I showing this? Because there was one time that salary grading was asked in the board examination. Ang tanong, anong salary grade ang isang customs examiner? Okay? So, we will know anong salary grade ng isang customs examiner. So, si Commissioner of Customs, salary grade 30 siya. Ang sahod niya, 196,000 pesos. And then Deputy Commissioner, salary grade 28. Salary grade 27, yung Director. And then salary grade 26, yung mga District Collectors ng malalaking ports. So as far as the Bureau of Customs is concerned, yung salary grade 30, 28, 27, and 26, lahat yan appointed by the President. Okay? Salary grade 26, 27, 28, and 30 appointed by the President. Ibig sabihin, pag nagpalit ng Pangulo, papalitan ang mga district collector ng mga major ports, papalitan ang mga directors, papalitan ang mga deputy commissioners, papalitan definitely ang Commissioner of Customs. And even kahit hindi pa nagpalit ng Pangulo, pwedeng palitan. Example, yung Commissioner of Customs, pang ilan na ba siyang commissioner? I think pangatlo na siyang commissioner under President Marcos's administration. The first commissioner was Commissioner Ruiz, and then the second commissioner was Commissioner Rubio, and then the third commissioner is now Commissioner Nepomuceno. So kapag 26, 27, 28, and 30 presidential appointees yan, kahit anong oras pwedeng palitan. While yung salary grade 25 pababa, these are appointees by the Commissioner of Customs. So sila tong mga, ang tawag natin dito, mga regular positions. So ibig sabihin, kahit magpalit ng Pangulo, magpalit ng Commissioner, hindi ka matatanggal sa position because you are appointed to a permanent position. So yan yung salary grade 25, yung mga deputy district collectors. Salary grade 24, yung mga collector 4, mga division chiefs. 23, yung collector 3. 22, yung collector 2. 21, collector 1. So, bakit may mga collector 1, collector 2, collector 3? Kasi depende yan sa subport. May mga subport na yung port collector nila, collector 1. Like for example, I think subport of Dumaguete, collector 1. May mga subports naman na collector 2, yung kanilang port collector. Meron namang subport na collector 3 yung kanilang collector, such as the subport of Mactan in Cebu, collector 3 yung port collector. So, depende yan sa laki ng port. Meron ding mga district collectors na collector 6, such as MICP, POM, Cebu. Pero may mga ports naman na collectors 5, such as Port of Iloilo, collector 5 yan. Port of Tacloban, collector 5 yan. Okay? So, yung customs examiner, salary grade 16, yung customs examiner. At ang sahod ng customs examiner ay 41,616 a month. So, yan yung sahod ng examiner. Okay? And then, you have the other positions at the Bureau of Customs. So, yung ating mga customs police, so, yan yung sahod nila, tsaka yung ating mga agents. Okay, let's have this question. The President is considering his friend, Attorney A, to be the Commissioner of Customs. However, the Secretary of Finance wants Customs Broker E to be the Commissioner of Customs. Eventually, Attorney A was appointed. His appointment was then questioned because the Secretary of Finance did not recommend him. Is the appointment valid under the CMTA? Ang gusto ng Pangulo, si Attorney A. Pero ang gusto ng Secretary of Finance, si Customs Broker E. Pero ang nanaig, syempre, ang Pangulo. Pero walang recommendation, hindi recommended yung Commissioner. Required ba na recommended ni Secretary of Finance? Is the appointment by the President of Attorney A, even without the recommendation of the Secretary of Finance, valid? The answer is yes, it's valid. Why? Because under the CMTA, in Section 200, ang sabi lang dyan, the Commissioner shall be appointed by the President. Wala namang sinabi, the Commissioner shall be appointed by the President upon the recommendation of the Secretary of Finance. So, hindi required ang recommendation ni Secretary of Finance. Now, let's go to Police Authority under Customs Laws. Okay, it's almost 9 in the morning. 10, almost 10. So, Police Authority, arrest, search, and seizure. Okay? Arrest, search, and seizure. And who are authorized to exercise police authority? Number 1, yung taga-Bureau of Customs. That's the first set of people who can exercise police authority. Ang second group, yung hindi taga-Bureau of Customs pero members ng mga law enforcement agencies such as the Philippine National Police, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the Philippine Coast Guard, the National Bureau of Investigation. But the requirement for them to exercise police authority under customs laws dapat meron silang authorization galing kay commissioner. At ano yung form ng authorization na yan? Deputization order. Okay, deputization order. Yan yung tawag nung form na yan. And I'm sorry. Yung pangatlong set of persons who are authorized to exercise police authority under the CMTA ay yung mga empleyado at opisyales ng Bureau of Internal Revenue. There is no requirement for them to be deputized. There is no requirement for them to have the authorization from the commissioner. The only thing required is that they would exercise the power to effect arrest, search, and seizure when it involves the payment of internal revenue taxes. So let's have a question, a sample problem. Okay. The National Bureau of Investigation created a team that conducted a search in the warehouse of A Corporation. When the lawyer of A Corporation inquired as to the authority of the NBI, the team leader showed a letter from the district collector of the port authorizing the NBI to effect the search. Is the search valid? Yes or no? Valid ba yung search? Ano nga yung requirement kapag NBI, PNP, AFP? Dapat merong authorization from the commissioner. In this case, galing lang kay district collector. So, hindi valid yung search. Okay, next question. Assuming that the search was conducted by the Bureau of Internal Revenue for the purpose of checking whether the excise taxes on the wines were properly paid. Is the search valid if the letter was only signed by the district collector and not by the commissioner? The answer is yes. Bakit? Kasi hindi naman required na ang BIR ay merong authorization. Ang requirement lang, basta ang purpose ng kanilang pag-search, pag-arrest ay para i-check kung binayaran ba yung duty ay yung internal revenue taxes. Okay. Now, pwede bang pasukin ng Bureau of Customs o ng kahit sinong person who is authorized under the CMTA ang kahit anong lugar? The answer is yes. Sabi ng Section 219, pwedeng pasukin kahit anong oras, basta hindi bahay. Okay? As long as hindi bahay. Bakit? Kasi, within siya sa limitation na ibinigay ng batas. Section 219 is an exception to the general rule that every search must have a warrant. Ang tanong, paano naman kung yung security guard ay doon natutulog sa warehouse, ay doon natutulog sa opisina, magiging bahay na ba siya? Hindi. Sabi ng batas, even if a security personnel lives in that office or warehouse, such structure does not become a dwelling house under the law. Paano naman kung bahay yung papasukin? Kapag bahay na ang papasukin, dapat meron ng warrant issued by a court. Okay? So, dapat may search warrant na. Ano naman yung effect kung yung search ay illegal? According to the Constitution, any evidence obtained in an illegal search is also illegal. That's the doctrine of the fruit of the poisonous tree. So, kung ang search ay illegal, yung makukuhang ebidensya doon sa illegal search is also illegal and therefore cannot be used as evidence in any case or in any proceeding. Okay, Section 224, yung power to inspect and visit. Under Section 224, the Commissioner of Customs or any customs officer authorized by the Commissioner can go to a place where goods, imported goods are offered for sale or kept in storage. At anong pwede nilang gawin doon? Pagpunta nila doon, they have the power to demand evidence of payment of duties and taxes. Okay. So, what if pagpunta nila doon, they have the power to demand, di ba? So, kailan ba dapat ipakita ng may-ari nung tindahan, nung warehouse yung kanyang proof of payment of duties and taxes. Dapat ipakita niya within 15 days from the demand is made. And if hindi niya na ipakita within 15 days, then the goods shall be seized by the Bureau of Customs. And then what if after 15 days, hindi niya na ipakita kasi naghanap pa siya and then na-seize na yung kanyang shipment. So there's a warrant of seizure and detention issued by the Bureau of Customs. What if nahanap na niya yung proof of payment of duties and taxes? Anong pwede niyang gawin? So ang gagawin ng owner, pupunta kay Bureau of Customs, ipakita yung kanyang papeles at mag-request siya for the motion to quash or recall the warrant. Okay, let's have a problem. While looking for a car to be given as a birthday gift to his girlfriend, Deputy Commissioner demanded from the owner of the car dealership a copy of the proof of payment of the duties and taxes. Does the Deputy Commissioner have that authority? The answer is no. Kasi wala naman siyang authorization from the Commissioner of Customs. And in what form yung authorization ni Commissioner? In the form of a letter of authority, LOA. Okay? So, assuming that the customs officer has a letter of authority, went to a mall, and demanded payment of duties and taxes, as the owner was not able to show proof of payment at that time, ang ginawa ni customs officer, nirecommend niya yung seizure ng goods. Is the customs officer correct? Yes or no? The answer is no. Bakit hindi siya correct? Kasi hindi ho automatic yung pag-seize ng shipment. Masiseize lang yung shipment if lumagpas na yung 15 days at walang maipakitang proof of payment of duties and taxes. Take note, the owner of the goods has 15 days from the date of demand to show proof of payment of duties and taxes. And only when the owner fails to show proof that the goods may be seized by the Bureau of Customs. Okay, let's proceed to administrative and judicial proceedings. So what is jurisdiction? Jurisdiction is the power or the authority vested by law to a court or administrative body to take cognizance of a case, to hear and try the case, to decide the case, to enforce its decision. So, ang lagi kong ginagamit na example dito ay ang pag-declare ng suspension ng classes. Let us say for example, may napaka lakas ng ulan, bumabagyo, bumabaha. And then nagpunta pa rin kayo sa office, sa school kasi wala namang nag-declare, wala namang kayong prior knowledge na suspended yung classes. And then let us say na nag-text, let us just say for example, nag-text ang dean na kahit bagyo, you will still have classes. Pagdating nyo sa school, sabi ng gwardiya, walang pasok. Sino yung papaniwalaan nyo? Yung dean o yung guard? Of course, ang papaniwalaan nyo, yung dean. Because the dean is the authority, has the authority. So, ganun din yung jurisdiction. Between a person who has the authority and a person who doesn't have the authority, sino yung papaniwalaan? Siyempre, yung taong may authority. And that's the exercise of jurisdiction. So, jurisdiction can be original. Ibig sabihin, yung pag-perform ng power for the first time. Such as in the case of a lower court. Okay? Versus appellate jurisdiction. So, sa appellate jurisdiction, meron ng previous decision, tapos gusto nyong ipa-review. That's an appellate jurisdiction. Exclusive, ibig sabihin, siya lang, walang iba. Pag sinabi niyo naman ng concurrent, two or more courts or offices can exercise jurisdiction over a subject matter. So as far as the Bureau of Customs is concerned, anong type ng jurisdiction meron si Bureau of Customs? Under Section 202 of the CMTA, exclusive and original jurisdiction over forfeiture cases. Okay, administrative action, that's anything that happens within an administrative agency, while judicial action is in a court of law. Okay, so may nagtatanong din, administrative, civil, and criminal. Pag sinabi mong administrative, determination of facts. Pag sinabi mong civil, ibig sabihin, there is a cause of action that have to be pursued. Pag criminal naman, ang purpose ay para panagutin yung tao. That's why the penalty in criminal action is imprisonment or fine. So, paano mo yan malalaman? Sa title pa lang, sa civil, it's Mr. A versus Mr. B, while in criminal cases, it's usually people of the Philippines versus a person. Okay. So what are the significant doctrines? First is the doctrine of primary jurisdiction. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng primary jurisdiction? Ang ibig niyang sabihin, kapag yung isang administrative agency ay binibigyan ng kapangyarihan ng batas upang i-resolve ang isang issue or isang controversy, then the court will not get itself involved in that controversy. That's primary jurisdiction. For example, kung meron kayong problem, meron kayong complaint sa grade ninyo sa isang subject, sino ba yung una nyong pupuntahan? It's the teacher, di ba? Hindi naman mismo diretso sa dean. So ganyan din yung doctrine of primary jurisdiction. You go first to the government agency, to the administrative agency that the law that has jurisdiction as provided by law. And then the doctrine of exclusive jurisdiction, ibig sabihin, kapag ang isang agency ay binibigyan ng kapangyarihan ng batas, na siya lang ang pwede na mag-hear ng kasong yan, then no other court should interfere in the resolution of such case. A case in point is Paces versus Averia in 1969. This is not 1969, 1966 pala to. So, ang nangyari dito sa Paces versus Averia, merong barko na sinis ng Bureau of Customs. Ang ginawa ng may-ari ng barko, sa halip na mag-participate siya sa seizure and forfeiture proceeding, ay pumunta siya sa korte at nag-file ng replevin suit. Ano ba yung replevin? Replevin suit is an action whereby a party, any person who wishes to take possession over another property. So for example, sa case na to, yung barko, yung may-ari ng barko, di ba yung barko ay kinuha ng Bureau of Customs, siniz ng Bureau of Customs. Ngayon, gustong kunin ng may-ari ng barko yung barko. So, sa halip na pumunta siya sa district collector at mag-participate sa seizure and forfeiture proceeding, ang piniling gawin ng may-ari ng barko ay pumunta sa hukuman, okay, in a court of law and file a replevin suit for the purpose of asking the court to command the Bureau of Customs to give back the possession of the vessel to its owner. Ang sabi ng Supreme Court sa kasong ito, this is the first case that the Supreme Court has ruled that the Bureau of Customs has exclusive jurisdiction over the imported goods. So, ibig sabihin, kapag na-seize ng Bureau of Customs ang isang barko o isang shipment, hindi pwedeng mag-intervene yung korte. Dapat pabayaan ng hukuman ang Bureau of Customs na gawin yung kanyang trabaho ayon sa batas. And if the owner of the goods is aggrieved of the decision of the district collector, then the owner can still have the remedy of filing an appeal before the Commissioner of Customs. At kapag talo pa rin siya sa level ni Commissioner of Customs, then that's the time that the owner of the goods can go to court. And in this case, to the Court of Tax Appeals. So that's the first case where the Supreme Court upheld the authority, the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Customs. Na kapag, when it comes to forfeiture, when it comes to seizure of imported goods, walang pwedeng mag-intervene sa Bureau of Customs kasi exclusive domain yan ng Bureau of Customs. And then exhaustion of administrative remedies, ibig sabihin, bago ka pumunta sa hukuman at humingi ng tulong, dapat mo munang ubusin lahat ng pwede mong gawin sa loob ng ahensya ng gobyerno. So, where do we find these two doctrines in the CMTA? These two doctrines are found or can be found in Section 1137 of the CMTA. Ang sabi sa Section 1137, jurisdiction over imports and exports is exclusive to the Bureau of Customs. And except for the CTA, no court may issue any order or decision until all the remedies for administrative appeal have been exhausted. So yung first sentence, yan yung doctrine of exclusive jurisdiction. And then yung second sentence would be the doctrine of exhaustion of administrative remedies. Okay, next, advance ruling. Ano ba tong advance ruling? Bago pa lang dumating yung shipment, gusto mo nang hingin kung ano yung proper classification, ano yung rate of duty, ano yung value ng goods, ano yung treatment when it comes to origin of the goods, then that's advance ruling. At least 90 days prior to importation. Kanino ka magfa-file? Kapag classification, Tariff Commission. Kapag valuation and rules of origin, Bureau of Customs. Kapag naman, ano yung period to decide? 30 days. And then the implementing regulation, Tariff Commission Order number 2017-01, while valuation and rule of origin would be CAO number 3-2016 as implemented by CMO number 30-2016. Then application fee, mas mura yung tariff classification, tapos yung valuation and rules of origin 1.5. So, ang classification 510. Pagdating sa valuation and rules of origin, baliktarin nyo lang yung 51, magiging 15. So, it's 1,500. And then the validity period sa advance ruling on tariff classification, 5 years yung kanyang validity, while valuation and rules of origin, 3 years. Dispute settlement. So sa dispute settlement, ang issue dito, assessment matter. Okay? Valuation, classification, rules of origin, and other customs issues. Dumaan ka muna sa examiner, appraiser, chief assessment, deputy district collector for assessment, and then district collector. Kapag hindi pa rin convince si customs doon sa value mo, sa classification mo, then you have the remedy to file protest. Okay, that's protest. That's the review of the decision of the district collector before the Commissioner of Customs. Now, seizure and forfeiture. Pareho ba ang seizure at saka forfeiture? Hindi. Kasi sa seizure, ang kinukuha lang sa seizure ay the possession over the goods. Okay? While sa forfeiture, ang kinuha ng Bureau of Customs ay ownership ng goods. Sa seizure, ang may-ari yung importer pa. Sa forfeiture, ang owner ay Bureau of Customs na through the government. Okay, ano ba yung nature ng seizure and forfeiture? Take note of this. They are not criminal in nature. Hindi dahil merong warrant of seizure and detention ay meron ng criminal liability. Because the purpose of seizure and forfeiture is only to enforce administrative fine or forfeiture. It is a proceeding against the shipment, not against the person. Kaya one time, merong kliyente doon sa port na umiiyak kasi akala niya na aarestuhin siya kasi nga meron siyang natanggap na warrant of seizure and detention. So I explained to that client that the warrant of seizure and detention does not mean that the owner, the importer, is criminally liable and subject to arrest. No, because the warrant of seizure and detention is only for the shipment. Kasi pag narinig nilang warrant, akala nila arrest warrant. Okay, alert order is a written order. Ano yung purpose niya? Para mag-conduct ng examination doon sa shipment. Okay? So, if merong derogatory information si customs at kailangan niyang i-check to verify that information, then the district collector will issue an alert order to cause, number one, the examination of the goods and the withholding of the processing of the goods declaration. While ang pre-lodgement naman ay wala pang goods declaration, pero kailangan i-examine, then pre-lodgement control order will be issued. Okay, what can be seized or forfeited? You can find this in section 1113 of the CMTA. Apat yan ang pwedeng ma-seize. The goods themselves, yung sasakyan, the vehicle, vessel, or aircraft, yung cargoes, yung stores and supplies ng barko, ng eroplano, at yung mismong box, yung nilagyan ng shipment ay pwede ring ma-seize. Okay, now, seizure and forfeiture proceedings in a nutshell. So ito yan, arrival of the goods, filing ng goods declaration, tapos kung may alert order, examination of the goods, determination of the probable cause. Kung, for example, if the purpose of the alert order is yung shipment ay misdeclared, ang declaration niya second hand cars, used cars, pero ang totoo parang laman brand new cars. So to verify that information, to verify that derogatory information, dapat mag-examine si customs para malaman ni customs kung totoo bang second hand or brand new yung sasakyan. At kung mapatunayan ni customs na misdeclared yung shipment, then there is probable cause. So warrant of seizure and detention, and then service of WSD, hearing, and then decision by the district collector. So that's the entire seizure and forfeiture proceeding at the level of the district collector. So ito yung example ng WSD. So the warrant of seizure and detention is addressed to the district commander of the Customs Police Division. So yan, nakapangalan yung shipment. Kaya yung warrant of seizure and detention is not against the person. It's against the shipment. Kaya versus the shipment. Kasi nga sabi natin na yung seizure and forfeiture is against the thing, not against the owner. Okay. Now, under Section 405, ang liability ng pagbayad ng duties and taxes is lodged on the owner. What if, for whatever reason, yung owner ay hindi na niya capable to pay? Anong pwede niyang gawin? Pwede niyang i-abandon yung shipment. Okay? That's why there is abandonment. And abandonment can either be implied or express. Kapag express, mismo yung importer ang nagsabing ayaw na niya sa shipment niya, or implied if meron siyang hindi ginawa. So that's found in Section 1129 of the CMTA. Now, I want you to watch this video clip for just a few minutes.
Sakto, isang linggo naman bago ang Pasko, mapapasakamay na sa wakas na mga pamilya ng mga OFW ang kanilang mga balikbayan box na ilang taon nang natenga sa port area sa Maynila. May mga karton na ngang lumambot sa tagal ng pagkakaimbak. Kaya ang sabi ng customs, dapat idemanda ang mga nagpabayang deconsolidators. Nakatutok si Oscar Oida.
Tila ayaw ng bitawan ng 48 anyos na OFW na si Michelle ang kanyang balikbayan box nang mabawi niya ito kanina sa inspection and delivery rollout ng Bureau of Customs sa mga abandonadong balikbayan boxes sa port area sa Maynila.
Dugot pawis ko po ito. Nandito rin po lahat yung pera ko, yung pinagdaan ko po na paunti-unti bumibili po ako ng mga gamit nila. Taste po talaga para po sa mga anak ko kasi solo parent lang po ako.
Paano ba naman? Nasa Kuwait pa si Michelle nang ipadala niya ang balikbayan box noong 2023. Nauna pa siyang makauwi bago nila ito nakuha.
Yung sa apo ko po, naglalakad na po yun. Bago ko na yung mga gamit ng mga sapatos niya rito, tsaka damit.
At hindi lang sa kanya, kundi mahigit sa 100,000 balikbayan box mula Middle East ang natenga dito sa port area. Matapos pabayaan ng mga pribadong kumpanyang dapat na mahala sa mga ito.
Yung deconsolidators na yan, sila ang dapat magbayad ng port charges, shipping costs, arrastre, and so on and so forth. At dapat din pagbayaran, siyempre, ang mga taxes and duties sa gobyerno. Hindi nila binayaran lahat yan. Sa pananaw ng pamahalaan, yan ay naabandona.
Ang isa nga na nahulog ng buksan ng isang container van, halatang lumambot na ng gusto marahil sa tagal ng pagkakaimbak.
Ang problema natin dyan, yung mga nagpadala ng mga pagkain o perishable goods, sana hindi pa sira.
Nagpapasalamat man, di pa rin maitago ng ilan ang pagkadismaya.
Nakakadurog po ng puso, depressed at stress. Dahil syempre, dugot pawis po ng bawat OFW po ang nilalagay sa balikbayan box na yan para po maibigay po namin dito sa mga kamag-anak namin dito sa Pilipinas.
Pakonsuelo ng wala ng babayaran para sa pagkuha ng mga balikbayan box. Pero pananagutin pa rin ng mga deconsolidator na dapat sumagot sa mga bayarin at nagpabaya sa mga package.
I-demanda natin at hindi na makapagnegosyo, magkakaroon kami ng mas mahigpit na parameters na kapag may problema, meron kaming hahabulin na band. Hindi yung pera ng gobyerno ang gagastusin natin sa obligasyon nila.
Para sa GMA Integrated News, Oscar.
So, that's what happened to the balikbayan boxes. Ang akala kasi ng mga balikbayan boxes senders natin from abroad na trabaho ng customs na i-deliver yung balikbayan box. Hindi. Trabaho yan at obligasyon yan nung kanilang binayarang consolidator at deconsolidator. Kasi akala nila, kapag hindi na-release yung balikbayan box, kasalanan ni Bureau of Customs. So as future customs brokers, as future customs officers, you have to inform and educate your neighbors, yung aunties and uncles nyo na galing abroad na nagpapadala, na it's not the role of the Bureau of Customs to deliver those boxes to them. It's the obligation primarily of the consolidators, the cargo forwarders, who they paid for to deliver the boxes. Okay, so at least alam nyo bilang future customs brokers at customs officers. Now, let's go to our last topic on the scope of practice of customs broker. So, sino ba yung customs broker? That's well defined in RA 9280. Ano ba yung role niya? To be the intermediary between customs and the traders, kasi tayo yung nagpa-process sa Bureau of Customs, to support our traders and most especially to support the effort of the government to collect lawful duties and taxes. So what laws affect the practice of the profession? Customs Brokers Act of 2004 as amended by RA 9853, and then the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act. Okay. Dapat alam nyo yung Customs Brokers Act of 2004, and then yung scope of practice ng profession: consultation, preparation of documents, declaration of duties and taxes, preparation, filing, and lodgement and processing of entries, and then representation before government agencies, other professional services, employment in private enterprises, teaching customs and tariff subjects in any university, college, or school. Yan yung scope ng practice ng profession. Question: Is a customs broker considered in the practice if he teaches in a review center? Considered ba yung nagtuturo sa review center to be in the practice of the profession? The answer is no, because the law requires employment in teaching in a school, university, or college offering customs administration program, hindi review center. Is a customs broker lawyer considered in the practice if he teaches law on obligations and contracts? The answer is no, because what is required or what is considered to be within the scope of the practice is teaching in customs and tariff administration subjects. And is a customs broker considered in the practice if she works in a private company? Pag nasa private company ka, considered ka ba in the practice? The answer is, it depends. It depends if your employment requires knowledge in tariff and customs laws. If it does, then you are considered to be in the practice of the profession. Now, the threefold liabilities, you have administrative, civil, and criminal. So, meron kang administrative liability as a customs broker. For example, meron kang ginawa na mali sa Bureau of Customs, then that is an administrative liability. Meron kang civil liability if meron kang kontrata sa importer na hindi mo nagawa, then that is civil liability. Meron ka ring criminal liability if what you did would tantamount to a crime. So, ano yung penalty sa administrative? Warning, suspension, or revocation. Kaya pwede kang matanggalan ng lisensya. Kung civil naman, magbayad ng danyos. Kung criminal naman, magbayad ng fine or kulong or both. And then, sino ba nagpaparusa sa administrative case? Either the Bureau of Customs or the PRC. Kapag civil and criminal naman, ay hukuman. Ano ba yung usual title? Bureau of Customs versus the customs broker. Kapag civil naman, a person versus a person. And then pag criminal, if it's a criminal case, people versus the customs broker.